Hi there, and welcome to today's tutorial. My name is Moshe Karen, and today we'll be going over creating and utilizing dynamic blocks in AutoCAD and Civil3D. I will begin by showing an example of an application of a dynamic block. In this circumstance, I'm dealing with a pressure pipe network. Since the inception of AutoCAD Civil3D 2023 and 2022, they added a lot of features that allow it to be easier to modify pressure pipe networks. So for example, I have over here, near my cursor, a crossing pipe utility. And this is my profile of my pressure pipe network. I want my pipe to bend underneath the utility and to follow specifications guided by the governing agency in this detail. So as shown, I have to maintain for a 12-inch pipe a 6-inch clearance, as stated over here, and a typical 5-foot offset from the bend to the side of the crossing substructure. If the circumstances were different, say we had a larger pipe that were larger than a 12-inch diameter, we would need a 12-inch minimum clearance. So I'll begin by typing in block palette, thereby allowing me to open up the available blocks. In this case, I already pre-created a block called Pressure Pipe Clearance 45. I'll drop it in, and let's show how useful this is. I can guide my cursor, snap it to the bottom of the pipe, extend these leaders to some point that crosses the pressure pipe. Then I have options as well. I can drag this cursor to adjust it from 12 inches to 6 inches, and now I have a perfect guiding line for creating and adjusting my pressure pipe network. I could then click on the pressure pipe, do add bends, snap to each of the points, and just like that, I have quickly and easily adjusted my pipe network to go underneath the crossing substructure. In this case, as shown, I adjusted it a little bit wrong, so in the future, I would recommend most likely snapping it to the existing alignment, the bottom inverts. But without further ado, that's a very useful application of a dynamic block that can help you in your modeling. So let's jump into it. How do we create such a dynamic block? So let's jump into creating this dynamic block. First, we'll go to the Home ribbon, on the top, click on Insert, guide our cursor to the Blocks tab, where we can then click on the Create block. In this case, I will call my block, similar to the last one, Pressure Pipe Clearance. But in this case, the last block, if you recall, maintained 45-degree bends. But let's say I need it to be steeper and have a 60-degree bend. So I will start by calling it 60. I'll then click OK. In this circumstance, I did not select any blocks because I want to start from scratch. So this is okay. No objects have been selected. What do you want to do? Continue. And now we will see that we are in the block editor. If I double tap on my home wheel, I do a zoom extends. And what I like to do as well is I like to know where my coordinates are. So I toggle on show UCS at origin. Thereby, when I move around, I can tell this is the 0, 0 point from which I start. So let's begin by drawing that polyline that we snapped to the underside of the crossing pipe. So I'll do polyline spacebar, press 0, 0 as shown on my command ribbon, press spacebar, and as you can see, it has snapped to the origin. I'll then turn on my ortho snaps, type in a generic 1, and press spacebar. So now I have a 1 foot long polyline snapping to the origin. I'll then extend it by 1 foot. So now I have 1 foot on either side, and that gives me a starting base from which to create my line work. Next, I will do another polyline. I'll again type polyline. In this case, I want it to start at -1 foot off from the origin. So I'll do 0, 1. I have my ortho snapped. I'll type 5 because per the detail I have to maintain about a 5 foot offset. Press spacebar. And now I have a line. Then I can add a vertex, turn off my ortho snaps, turn on my polar tracking. In this circumstance, I want the 30, 60, 90. So this is 30 degrees as shown next to my cursor. That's 60, and I will just type 1.5. Perfect. Now I have it angled at a 60 degree. To be quick on time, I will do the mirror command. Selecting my first point on the mirror line, I'll turn on my snaps, snap there. It asks, do I want to erase it? I click no, and now I have a mirrored object. I'll do the join command, thereby joining these two, and to clean it up, I will just remove that vertex. So now I have my line work as desired. Next, with our lines now set up, let's make sure that they do not show. So I'll select the two, go to my layers, press def points, because last thing I want is for them to show. So now I have these both on def points. Now, let's discuss briefly how exactly dynamic blocks work. So if we look on to the right, we have the blocks authoring palette. This kind of guides the user through the different steps needed for when creating a dynamic block. The first step is the parameters. Parameters define where the start and finish typically are, and where the origin is, how to start creating an array, and how to move things polar or linearly or as a point, or flipping it. For example, if you wanted to mirror something, you could use a flip command. If you wanted a base point for where something should start, you could do that as well. In my case, I'm going to start with a linear command because I know I want to take this leg and stretch it. So I'll snap. If we look on the command ribbon on the top, it says, please specify a start point. I'll start at this endpoint and drag to this endpoint. Now what's shown in blue, this distance, it's not going to plot. It's not going to show up. Rather, it's kind of a def points layer that allows for the parameters and allows that dynamic nature. Next, we'll do the same again for the other side. Press both, snap to both ends, and now we have two linear distances. If I select the two of them and I go to the properties, let's discuss that. In the properties panel, we can see that we have the two linear parameters selected. It shows what layer they are as typical per AutoCAD standards. But if we want to look at some more specific things, we can look at the value set and the miscellaneous. If we look over here, we have base location. So it's asked where the start point was, which when we started from the bends to the a free point on the end. In this case, though, we have two grips. As we can see, the two grips shown as rectangular grips are at those ends. But I don't really want this part to stretch, so I will turn each of these to 1. Now, if we look, the arrow has shifted from showing both ends of the lines to just the free end, which is perfect for me. Next, let's add one more linear parameter for the offset from the bottom of the pipe. Again, since I only want it to move in one direction, away from the bottom of the invert of the substructure crossing, I will select this linear parameter. Again, choose. So right now we can see two arrows, and I switch it to 1 and escape. We see it shifted, but it's going in the wrong direction. So I will delete and redraw, this time taking more care to note which direction I am beginning. Select once more, choose one grip, and voila. I have it going in the direction down. You also have the option, if you would like to help clarify what the parameter is, I will name it offset distance. So it's a quick way to help clarify for other future users what exactly these parameters are. Let me show you another useful tool. There's also a way to choose your value set. In this case, as seen before, you have options. In my case, I was able to shift it to either 6 inches or 12 inches minimum clearance. So I used a list command. If I click on this dialog, I can then add extra parameters. So I could do 0.5, but let's say I wanted to do a bunch. I could do 1, 2, 3, and I click add, and I can do a bunch at a time. But in this case, I only want a half a foot and 1 foot, so I'll click OK. Now with that all set up, let's move on next to our actions. Actions are similar to many AutoCAD commands that we are very used to, such as the move, scale, stretch, and rotate, and array. In this case, I want my free ends to be able to stretch. So I will begin by clicking the stretch action. If we look on the command ribbon at the top, it says select parameter. I will highlight and select that, distance 1 parameter. Then it says specify the parameter point to associate the action. I want it to occur on the endpoint. Next, specify the first corner or stretch frame. So in this case, I will do a selection window from the right to the left. I will then select my objects and press spacebar. See how it changed from no longer having this caution symbol to being activated? Now we can see that the stretch command is activating from this point and on, allowing us to stretch it to whatever distance we so choose by grabbing the grip. Let's repeat this again for the distance 2 on the left. Let's again select the stretch command, select the parameter, select the endpoint, select the frame, press spacebar, and select the object. Voila! Now we have both those two set up. And the last one, since I want it to be an offset, what I used was a move command. I thereby allowed it to be moved from 6 inches to 12 inches. So in this case, again, what do? Select the parameter, specify the point, in this case, the point where I am moving, select the objects, and press spacebar. Now it has gone. Now a good tip is if we go to the block editor ribbon, we have this tool called Test Block. So let's click on it and see what happens. AutoCAD now allows if I double click on the home wheel to zoom extents, we can see and we can test our block to see if it's fully working. So if I grab the grip, I can see it either goes to one of the predefined white tabs, either that one or that one, as intended. Or if I want, I can also extend to whatever point. I can grab this grip and move it, and now I'm all set. So I'll close the test block editor. I will now go back to the top, do save block. Since I am done, I can do close block editor. Let's close my properties palette for now. Type in blocks palette. Let's now scroll down to this 60. There we are. Now we have a pressure pipe clearance 60. And click and drop it in. And now it performs as intended, allowing us to snap, to say some invert, shifting it, and that's how you design and utilize dynamic blocks. Thank you for watching.